In 1822, the Pope offered to make a French archaeologist a cardinal. The man was not religious, not a priest, not even a believer. He was married and a committed Republican in post-revolutionary France. But he had just done something the Vatican considered more valuable than faith. He had examined a 2,000-year-old Egyptian star map, and he had found a way to make its most dangerous implications disappear. That star map threatened to rewrite the accepted age of civilization itself. The Pope needed the problem neutralized, and this archaeologist had neutralized it. In return, he was offered a red hat and a seat among princes of the Church. His name was Jean-François Champollion, the man who deciphered the Rosetta Stone. This is a story about the sky, the actual physical sky above your head. Not the sky as metaphor or symbol, but a measurable record. The arrangement of stars you see tonight is provably different from what your ancestors saw. Stars shift positions, slowly, across centuries. No single human lifetime can detect it, but instruments can. Star charts can record it. And ancient civilizations did record it with extraordinary precision, which is exactly why those records keep getting destroyed. The object at the center of the Champollion story is called the Dendera Zodiac. It was carved into the ceiling of the Temple of Hathor in southern Egypt, a circular stone relief depicting every constellation, every zodiac sign, the positions of 5 known planets, and 2 specific eclipses. The astronomer John H. Rogers described it as the only complete map we have of an ancient sky. In 1799, Napoleon's expedition found it. His personal artist, Vivant Denon, lay on his back in a dark chapel and sketched it by candlelight. When those sketches reached Paris, they detonated a scientific firestorm. French scientists attempted to date the zodiac using a phenomenon called precession. Earth's axis wobbles slowly, like a spinning top losing momentum. One complete wobble takes roughly 26,000 years. This wobble shifts the apparent positions of stars by about 1 degree every 72 years. If you know where the stars are now and where an ancient map says they were, you can calculate when the observation was made. The sky carries its own timestamp. It is embedded in the geometry of stellar positions, and it cannot be forged. Some French scientists placed the Dendera Zodiac at 14,000 years old. Others estimated 2000 BCE. Either answer was devastating. Biblical chronology placed creation at roughly 4000 BCE. A stone ceiling in an Egyptian temple was quietly threatening the foundation of Western religious authority. The controversy became so intense it earned its own name, the Dendera Affair. Mathematicians, astronomers, and theologians fought publicly over what the sky was allowed to tell them. And then the zodiac itself was taken. In 1820, a French antiquities dealer named Sébastien Saulnier hired a mason to cut it from the temple ceiling. They used chisels, levers, and gunpowder. The carved stone was loaded onto a boat and shipped to France. King Louis XVIII purchased it for 150,000 francs. It has been in the Louvre ever since. Egypt keeps a plaster copy. Then Champollion weighed in. He examined the hieroglyphic cartouches surrounding the zodiac and identified Greek and Roman royal names. His conclusion placed the carving in the 1st century BCE. Not ancient, not threatening. Problem solved. The Pope was so grateful he extended the cardinalship to a married non-believer. That is how urgently they needed the sky's testimony silenced. What makes this more complicated than simple religious interference is that Champollion was probably right about the carving date. Modern analysis by Eric Auberg in 1995 confirmed the zodiac depicts a solar eclipse from March 751 BCE. It also records a lunar eclipse from September 25, 52 BCE. The zodiac was carved during the late Ptolemaic period. The mainstream account holds on this specific point, but the constellation arrangement tells a separate story. Certain star positions on that ceiling correspond to observations from roughly 650 years before the stone was carved. The Egyptians were not mapping their own sky. They were preserving older knowledge, encoding someone else's measurements into stone. Nobody in the 19th century pursued who made those original observations. Nobody asked what happened to that knowledge. The carving date was settled. Everything else was left deliberately unexamined. This pattern of astronomical records being physically destroyed or officially suppressed is not limited to Egypt, and what surfaced in 2012 makes the Dendera affair look like a footnote. St. Catherine's Monastery sits on the Sinai Peninsula in Egypt. It is among the oldest continuously operating Christian institutions on Earth. Its library holds thousands of manuscripts, including one called the Codex Climaci Rescriptus, 146 pages of Syriac Christian text written in the 9th or 10th century. But the pages are a palimpsest, parchment that monks scraped clean of older writing and reused. The original content beneath the Christian text was assumed to be more scripture. Nobody questioned this for centuries. Then, a Cambridge undergraduate named Jamie Clare noticed something. During a summer research project in 2012, he spotted faint Greek letters beneath the Syriac script, not prayers, not devotional text, numbers, star coordinates. In 2021, biblical scholar Peter Williams identified them as astronomical measurements. When the pages were subjected to multispectral imaging, a technique that layers visible, infrared, and X-ray photography, the hidden text began surfacing letter by letter. What emerged was a fragment of the oldest precision star catalogue ever recorded. The coordinates described the constellation Corona Borealis with startling accuracy. Researchers used precession calculations to date the observations to approximately 129 BCE. That date falls within the career of Hipparchus of Rhodes. He was the Greek astronomer who catalogued roughly 850 stars and who first discovered precession itself. His complete catalogue had been considered lost for over 2,000 years. Historians knew it existed only from second-hand references in later texts. Now fragments were appearing beneath Christian prayers on recycled goatskin parchment. The recovered data turned out to be more accurate than the work of Claudius Ptolemy. Ptolemy compiled his own catalogue 3 centuries after Hipparchus and had long been treated as the gold standard of ancient astronomical precision. In 2025 and 2026, the manuscript traveled to the SLAC National Accelerator Laboratory in California. Scientists there used synchrotron X-rays, generated by electrons moving near the speed of light, to penetrate layers of medieval ink. Descriptions of the constellation Aquarius appeared on screen. The ancient Greek ink had left a calcium trace distinguishable from the iron gore ink monks had layered over it a millennium later. Think about what happened here. The most precise astronomical measurements of the ancient world were physically scraped off parchment by monks who needed writing material. Coordinates that Hipparchus spent decades plotting, with accuracy unmatched for 1,500 years after his death, were ground away to make space for devotional text. St. Catherine's Monastery holds over 160 palimpsests. Nobody knows how many other ancient scientific records were scraped clean beneath that same roof. The monastery's shelves may contain the ghosts of entire fields of knowledge we have never recovered. Now, there is a reasonable objection to the direction this is heading. Parchment reuse was economical, not malicious. The Dendera controversy reflected genuine scientific uncertainty, not a cover-up. Ancient records are lost constantly through fire, neglect, and decay. These are fair points. And the astronomical evidence actually provides one of the strongest counter-arguments to any claim that the historical timeline was fabricated. In 3001, Halley's Comet swept across Italian skies. The Florentine chronicler Giovanni Villani wrote that it left great trails of fumes visible from September through January. The artist Giotto di Bondone observed it too. He painted it in the Scrovegni Chapel in Padua, placing it above the Nativity as the Star of Bethlehem. Art historian Roberta Olson confirmed that Giotto captured accurate details of the coma, the tail, and the central condensation. No other painting achieved that level of astronomical precision for another 5 centuries, and the evidence goes further than one comet. Halley's Comet returns every 75 years or so, and independent observations from multiple civilizations track every single return. Chinese astronomers recorded it in 240 BCE. The Bayeux Tapestry depicts it in 1066. The orbital math matches across all of them. Solar eclipses documented by Pliny the Elder in 59 CE match modern calculations precisely. Observations from China's Tang dynasty align with the standard chronology. The sky does not contradict the timeline. The sky confirms it. I spent a long time not knowing what to do with that confirmation. I had gone into this research expecting to find fractures, star positions that contradicted their supposed dates, paintings that depicted skies which never could have existed when they were allegedly painted, the kind of clean numerical anomaly you can point to and say, there, the math collapses. Instead, I found airtight consistency. The astronomical record is intact, the dates hold. Every checkable celestial event from the past 3,000 years lines up with the conventional chronology. For weeks, I thought that meant there was nothing here, that I had followed a promising thread to a dead end and should move on to something else entirely. Then I realized why the consistency made the rest of the story worse, not better. The sky is accurate. Its testimony is trustworthy. And institutions still destroyed the documentation. Not because the evidence was flawed, because it was unassailable, and the conclusions it supported, about who built what, who knew what, and how old certain knowledge really was, were too uncomfortable to leave accessible. Reliable evidence that gets destroyed is more disturbing than unreliable evidence that gets ignored. Consider what the sky reveals about the structures we still walk through. In 2787 BCE, the North Star was not Polaris. It was Thuban, a faint star in the constellation Draco. The Great Pyramid of Giza contains internal shafts whose angles correspond to where Thuban and other stars sat roughly 4,500 years ago. The Egyptians tracked what they called the undying stars, the circumpolar stars that never dip below the horizon. They built monuments aligned to a sky that has since rotated into a different configuration. The buildings remember which sky they were built under. The sky itself has moved on without them. You can stand inside the Great Pyramid today and point a laser up those shafts. It will not hit Thuban. It will hit empty space where Thuban used to be. Polaris will reach its closest alignment with true north on March 24, 2400. After that, it drifts. Around 4000, a star called Erai takes over. Around 7500, Alderamin. The cycle takes 26,000 years to complete. Every civilization that has ever looked upward navigated by a slightly different arrangement of stars. Every monument aligned to the heavens preserves a frozen record of which arrangement its builders saw. This is why the most recent finding troubles me most. In 2025, researchers at China's national astronomical observatories used artificial intelligence to reanalyze the star manual of Master Xi. It is China's oldest surviving star catalogue, attributed to the astronomer Xi Shen during the Warring States period. For decades, the accepted narrative in Western academia was straightforward. Hipparchus invented systematic star mapping around 130 BCE. Chinese records existed, but they were treated as less rigorous, less systematic, essentially derivative. Discrepancies between the manual's recorded star positions and known celestial coordinates were written off as observational errors. Nobody investigated further. The hierarchy was established. Greek first, everyone else second. The new analysis, using a technique called the generalized Huff transform, proved those discrepancies were not errors at all. They were updates. The original observations dated to approximately 355 BCE. That is more than 200 years before Hipparchus began his work. Later corrections in the same catalogue corresponded to around 105 CE, likely during the astronomer Zhang Heng's tenure. The manual documents over 120 stars and employs a spherical coordinate system connected to the armillary sphere. It represents continuous astronomical observation spanning close to 500 years, and Western academic institutions classified it as secondary for generations. 3 astronomical records, 3 civilizations, 3 erasures, a Greek star catalogue physically scraped off parchment and overwritten with scripture, an Egyptian sky map cut from its temple with explosives, its dating suppressed when it challenged religious chronology, a Chinese star manual dismissed as inferior by Western scholars for decades, until a machine proved it was older, more precise, and more continuously maintained than anything in the European tradition. Different mechanisms, different centuries, different continents, same outcome. The sky's testimony muted. Your zodiac sign, incidentally, is almost certainly wrong. The Western zodiac was standardized roughly 2,500 years ago. Since then, precession has shifted the constellations by approximately 30 degrees. That is nearly one full sign. If you were born under Aries, the sun was most likely in Pisces. If you identify as a Gemini, you are probably a Taurus. No one corrected this. Correcting it would require admitting the sky moves on a schedule, that its movement functions as a timestamp capable of dating anything ever built, carved, or observed beneath it. The sky is a clock that cannot be stopped, falsified, or reset. It can only be ignored. And for most of recorded history, ignoring it has been the preferred approach. I do not know what else is hidden in those 160 palimpsests at St. Catherine's Monastery. I do not know how many catalogues were scraped clean to make room for hymns and sermons. I do not know what the Dendera ceiling preserved from 6 centuries before its own creation. I do not know who made those original measurements, or what became of the civilization precise enough to generate them. I do not know how many other astronomical records from how many other cultures were dismissed, suppressed, or physically destroyed before anyone thought to examine them carefully. What I know is that the sky cannot be rewritten, maps can be redrawn, encyclopedias can be revised. Entire empires can vanish from the official record without leaving a single page behind. But the stars hold their positions with mathematical certainty, and every ancient chart that plotted those positions carries a timestamp no institution can alter. They scraped the parchment. They cut the ceiling out with gunpowder. They classified 5 centuries of continuous observation as derivative because it came from the wrong continent. The sky kept turning. 1 degree every 72 years, century after century. Patient and indifferent, answering to physics instead of politics. The longest-running clock on Earth, recording what no one has ever managed to erase. And still, somewhere on a shelf in a desert monastery, there may be pages no one has thought to scan yet. Pages where the ancient ink still holds its calcium ghost. Pages where the sky's oldest testimony is waiting beneath someone else's prayers.